Hello, everyone, and good afternoon to you. If you happen to be listening to this shortly after it posts, today is 11/16/2023, and it is currently 4:08 in the afternoon Mountain Standard Time. And first of all, thank you for tuning in. I hope your day is going well. I hope you're doing well. And I'm actually going to do something a little different here. If I could spell the word correctly. And just I don't know. It just felt like this would be I don't know. It just hit me at once to do this, so I'm gonna have some music playing in the background. Just So anyway, hope your day is going well. Sorry about the awkward pauses. So hope your day is going well. Again, my name is Nehru. I am the encourager, and this channel is here to do just that. The goal is to be an encouragement in whatever way that is needed, because it does need to be utilized in various forms at various times. So whether it's mentally, physically, right, in the 3D place that you and I are experiencing right now, or if it's beyond. So it's 4D, 5D, and 4D is where the battles happen. That's where that's where the devil and his angels battle against us and ours. That's where that battle happens, is in the 4D. But I wanted to actually come on and share something a little different perhaps today, but this is what I'm guided to do at this moment. I was sitting here listening to something, and it was stirring a need in me to share something a little, I suppose a little different, but I always share personal things because to a large degree I don't mind, but obviously there's boundaries for everything, as there should be. But so I wanted to talk a little bit about my journey through the diagnosis, which was the rare autoimmune virus, and then 4.5 years on dialysis. What did that look like? And perhaps, again, as always, and do not take this advice. Let me say this first of all. Do not take this advice as medical advice. I was a tax accountant for the last 13 years. I am not a medical professional in any sort, way, or fashion. I did not go to school to study that. The closest I got, I think, was a semester to be a dental hygienist. I think was the closest I got in my education journey. So do not take this advice as advisable medical advice or professional advice. Please, this is my experience, okay? And so again, whatever wisdom can be garnered from that, that's wonderful, because again, that's part of the way that we can heal one another, is by sharing our experiences. Because if you don't have to reinvent the wheel because someone else has already invented 100 of them, well then let's see what their will is, and if we can expand upon that, then great. If their will works great, then great. Then we'll use their will. Yes, do not take any of this as medical advice. It's just my journey from being diagnosed with, again, the rare autoimmune virus that is called, by the way, it's called IgG4 nephropathy. And it is an autoimmune virus that, in most cases, attacks the pancreas. There are a lot of characteristics that I did not fit when it came to what was known, which was very little, and it still is very little today. I mean, if you look up IgG4 nephropathy specifically, because there are other IgG4 antiviruses or autoimmune viruses, excuse me, but mine was nephropathy because that's attacked my kidneys. So when you look that up, you're still going to find very little information on it, and you'll probably still find more information on IgG something else, and not nephropathy. It's really only been distinguished as its own separate autoimmune virus as of 2010, and as I like to say in the medical world, that's like pneumonia being discovered yesterday. Like, can you imagine how unprepared we would be, or when they were, when it did first when the first case was known and it spread, or polio or measles or any one of those things, right? Can you imagine like day one of the widespread thing? We're talking about COVID and those types of things, that level of fatalities. But this has just happened. This is an extremely rare one, so it's not as widespread, thankfully. But yeah, so for most, it attacks the pancreas, and then there's some other organs that even before the kidneys that it typically attacks. There are really only two known cases, or causes, not cases, causes. There are a few cases too, but there's only two known causes. And one is high levels of mercury, or significant levels of mercury in your body. So obviously you can ingest mercury a number of different ways, like through the water. Fish, seafood is a very common way. They asked me about my deployments while I was in the military, and I still look every now and then, probably once or twice a year. I still do some type of search that looks into whether or not there's been some publicized case of other soldiers having this rare autoimmune virus. They have been recently diagnosed or what have you. So from time to time, I still look up that information just because there's a possibility. Or something else. It could be from a shot I got in the military. Who knows? And it may not have anything to do with that whatsoever. But, having been deployed, I think that's a fair question for sure. But anyway, yes, so there are very few cases. So along with the kidneys being one of the rare places that it attacks, it also attacks generally men in the Middle East, generally, the olive-colored skin, male, and they're 60 and older. Okay, when I was diagnosed 10 years ago, after losing like 30 plus pounds in less than a month, and I couldn't keep anything down. It did not matter what it was. It could be water, and I was losing weight at a rapid rate. I had just spent 6 months in Atlanta with a childhood friend who I consider a brother, and he graduated from Georgia State and now lives on the West Coast over in the San Francisco area. But I was planning on being over there in Georgia, in the Atlanta area, specifically Norcross, with him for 2 years. But his company ended up letting him go and laid off some 200 and something employees at the beginning of 2013, and I had been there for about 6 months at that time, and maybe not quite 6 months. I know by the time I left, I'd been there for 6 months, and so then he took this opportunity out on the West Coast, and of course, all my friends and everybody that I knew was back in Florida, so I went back to Florida. But I was already sick, is the reason why I tell that part of the story, because truth was I was sick before I even went to Georgia. However, and this didn't dawn on me until I look back, and they're asking me medical questions. They're like, so the nephrologist asked, so think back to when you first started, recognizing symptoms. Like, what was the very first time you recognized the first whatever that you would consider a symptom of what you're still feeling? And I could think back to 2007, and I could think back to then when the issue started, but back then it was infrequent. So it would be it would be once or twice a year. I would have these severe abdominal something or other happening, right? And then it would go, but it would be severe. I mean, like cold sweats, like it was bad in the bathroom for an hour plus. It was bad. And most of the time, just in there, bad. But they became more and more frequent, more and more frequent. Okay, so again, fast forward 5-6 years later, right? I'm going back to Florida from Georgia, and now it's really, really bad. And towards the end of 2012 is when I lost all of that weight in that short period of time. And I knew at that time there was definitely a need to do something. I didn't even know where the VA clinic was at that time. I was in Central Florida. I did not even know where the VA clinic was, because I'm that way. I think in 8 years of military service, I went to, they call it sick call, or at least that's what they used to call it. I don't know what they call it today. But, you could go to sick call if, you weren't feeling well or some part of your body hurt and you couldn't do physical fitness or PT that morning or what have you. Anytime during the day you could go there or what have you, right? For any aches or ailments or anything. I think in 8 years, I think I might have went 4 times, and twice was in basic training, and one of them was because my drill sergeant made me because I refused to go. Right? And that's not to brag or anything. That's just to show this is gonna sound funny. I just thought about this. I would probably rather chew on a bark than go get a prescription somewhere. Like I'm not so with that stuff, right? So anyway, speaking of which, I will mention there were a lot of pills that I came home with the day that I came home from my transplant, which happened in Pittsburgh, on the University of Pitt campus, where I understand it's the #1 transplant facility in the U.S. I did not know that, at least for military personnel. I did not know that at the time. But yes, so I came home with some 18 different medications, and today talking about wanting to be more natural, obviously, than manufactured or artificial. I also of those 18, including a mouth gargle, I today only have 2, and those 2 are anti-rejection medications. Are the only 2 medications that I'm on today. Okay, and it is said that you have to be on those forever, but miracles happen every day. So anyway, so back to the end of 2012, beginning of 2013. So I lost all this weight, going to get some blood work. The VA nephrologist at the clinic there in Orlando did not know what was going on. So at first, when he saw the blood work, he thought it was irritable bowel syndrome, right? and then did some other tests and asked me some other questions about symptoms. I didn't have any of those, several other symptoms I did not have associated with that diagnosis. So he was like, okay, nope, that couldn't be it. So a couple of weeks went by, and I think I went in for one or two more blood workups, I think, just because again, he told me eventually that he had to call the National Kidney Association and have them take a look. And he asked my permission. Is it okay if I share your blood work, your information with them, right? And he called me back in a week or so later, and he told me that it was this rare IgG4 nephropathy, and how rare it was. And he said in the 400 plus acute and chronic kidney failures that he has seen in his medical career, I was the very first one he had ever seen with that illness. And so that did not that did not surprise me or anything. And one of my good friends, she passed on January 28th of 2020 at the launch of the pandemic, which nothing's a coincidence to her, or for her. That's for her. But I remember me telling her that I was diagnosed with this rare autoimmune virus. And she said, you know what? It would be like you to get something that man can't cure. She said, that's just like you. So, cheers to you. And her name's Marsha. But yeah, so, because she had known, she knows my story. She knows my polygamous childhood living with my dad. She knows about the women. She's the only woman that I've ever dated that has met them and my siblings, at least the majority of my siblings, not all of them. She's the only woman that I've ever dated who's met the majority of them. So I call her my witness. And so, yeah, I remember her. I remember her telling me that. So, but it wasn't a surprise to me again at that point, because I had already started to see how, for me, and again, everybody has their own miraculous story, okay? I bet if I listened to your story, I bet my mouth would be like, wow, my jaw would be on the ground. I'd be like, whoa, you know? We all have a story, and it can be miraculous. That is the application part, and that is why life, liberty, and the pursuit, that word is so important, the pursuit of happiness. What's happiness? The love for yourself. What's the love for yourself? Whatever brings you happiness, that's what it is, barring any ill intentions towards anyone else. So it should, if it brings you joy to, I'm going to be extreme because that's the way I am. If it brings you joy to unalive people, well, then obviously that's no, right? Because that's bringing harm and detriment to someone else. So anything that is done genuinely in love, like genuine love, okay? Then, yeah, have at it. Free yourself, right? I was, my first hospital stay, I don't remember what day I went into the hospital in early January 2013, but I do remember the day I was discharged. And I do remember the day, in fact, I remember the day that I got the catheter put in my chest, okay? So the catheter was put in my chest on, or is that my first dialysis treatment? That might be my first dialysis treatment. Anyway, 2/15 of 2013. Yeah, 2013 was my very first dialysis treatment. Okay, and that was done in the hospital after I had the catheter put into my chest. A lot of caution with the catheter that's placed anywhere, but in your chest. Mine specifically, they put it typically around your collarbone area. Most people eventually get what's called a fistula, and that is in their arm or their leg. in most cases. I never did get that. I protested against that in 4.5 years. Those of you, if you are familiar with this process, you know that that is not, a catheter does not have a life more than 90 days. And because of infection, and that especially one in your chest, right? Because that's going directly into your heart, because that's an artery that they plug that line into for the filtering of your blood, right? Doing what your kidneys can't do at that point. So, but I refuse to get that, because this same friend, and she's here today. She's here today. Because this is the second time, and I'm gonna try not to cry. This is the second time I'm mentioning her name. Wasn't expecting this, but she's here, right? It's just like her to show up unannounced and just be like, here I am with a plate full of food and to feed 500 people, because that's how she is. I remember Marsha, same person, same lady. I remember she started dialysis like 3 months after I did. Same year. You're not meant to marry all soulmates that you meet. That's for somebody, okay? Many times your soulmates are the ones that you have great business partnerships with. They're the ones who when you have free time and they have free time, you're trying to figure out how you guys can spend time together. And that doesn't have to be anything romantic. That can be strictly platonic. That has nothing to do with physical intimacy whatsoever, right? Because we have soulmates of all sorts. Your parents could be your soulmates. One of your parents, both of your parents, siblings can be soulmates, right? This is how you get best friends, right? I've said for a long time that women have. Oh, this reminds me. Yes. Thank you, Most High. This reminds me. I listened to my recording earlier. I listened to my recording. From yesterday. I was like, I don't think I posted today. From yesterday, and I wanted to correct myself on something. So I was talking about this weird saying about how people say men have honor and women gossip or something like that. And I only said one half of what I should have said. So what I said was, first of all, that is such a idiotic thought process, right? But I said it's silly to think that because all women obviously don't gossip, but the other side of that is also all men are not honorable, right? And I didn't say that part, so I wanted to correct myself on that. And again, that may not mean anything to anyone, but it means something to me because it matters. It just matters. That's a quality thing. It matters. So anyway, so yes, so she started dialysis 3 months after I did. She had a much more difficult time because unfortunately her dialysis situation was due to her lack of self-care, because she was actually a diabetic, which I did not know until like towards the end of our romantic relationship, right? So she never took insulin. We never picked up insulin. We never nothing. None of that, right? And the time that we dated, and it was a good while that we did nothing, never, right? No mention of it or anything. Now she knew, but she today is probably one of the best known, if not the best known cook I've known this lifetime that I've known, who did not wear a badge as a chef. She could, it didn't matter what it was, it did not matter. It did not matter, right? She's phenomenal cook, right? And she had dreams of owning a hotel in Central Florida with a restaurant and all of that sort of thing in it. That was her dream, and I know she's not done living here, and I know she'll be here at some point if she's not already back here. She was a bull in a china shop. She was, if you needed something done, you called on her. If you did need it done, don't call on her, because if you did, before you could call her back and be like, oh wait, it's already done, and she has like obliterated everybody, but you have a finished product and it's beautiful and amazing. That's how she was. So you didn't call on her unless you really wanted the Uzis to come out, because when you did, you knew it was getting done. You couldn't care about the carnage that was left in the wake of whatever it was that she was doing, because she was gonna get it done, and it was gonna be great. So for you, Marsha, I honor you today, girl. I honor you every day, actually, and you know that. I mean, we talk all the time, but you, girl, I do. And thank you for being who you are. And I don't know how many other lifetimes we've shared together. But this lifetime, I can speak right now in this recording and leave this note and this timestamp and this place in history and say thank you. Yeah. So thank you for being here today too. Okay. And it just turned 27. And her birthday, the timer just turned 27 minutes exactly, and her birthday is 9/27. So thank you. So once I started treatments. Now again, hers went very different than mine, because hers was a different cause. Mine was a rare autoimmune virus. Hers was due to diabetes. So she had all kinds of other issues that I did not have to deal with. And so, again, nothing being a coincidence, the person who was sent, I'm going to keep talking about her. It's just the way that it's meant to go for this recording. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So, and I apologize with the pauses. I'm just trying to stay composed. Okay. So there is no way, because see, the reason why I call her my witness is because when we met, I was exiting the military. I started a civilian job in Lake Mary, Florida. And with the civilian job, I had like 8 more months or so, 7, 8 more months, maybe 8 more months, yeah. 8 more months left on my active duty contract. But with my leave and all of that, I had time. And so I just took time to transition back. I already was slightly reluctant. I was happy, but I was reluctant to get out of the military. I was happy because I thought I was going to be doing what I am now doing right now, but it looked nothing like what I am doing right now, if that makes any sense. Okay. And in fact, I remember telling my first sergeant, when it was, they were wanting me to go before the E6 board, and they were asking me, the first sergeant asked me, like, so what or sergeant major, like, what are you going to do when you get out, Sergeant Thomas? And I was like, I'm going to go to seminary school, and like, that's what I thought I was going to do. So it was already in me to do, but it was not ever supposed to look like what all that looks like, right? And again, you've heard me speak on it, right? Because it's not to where any of that any of those titles. I almost said garbage titles. It's not to wear any of that. None of that mask, right? Right? There's enough Kenneth Copelands out there. There's enough Creflo Dollars out there. There's enough Oprah Winfrey's out there. There's enough Jim Jones is out there. There's enough Jimmy Swaggart's out there. There's enough of Joel Osteen's out there. There's enough of Joyce Meyer's. There's enough of them out there. Right? You need something different, and you need something that's true. Yes, true. That's correct. Okay. And by the way, thank you. I saw when I looked at my channel today, and that's not to say that everything that they say isn't, but I assure you, the practices and things that they preach are a program, and it's not the truth. Okay? Because if it was the truth, they would be telling you that it's spirituality that gets you connected to Most High and not a scripture. They will tell you that it is spirituality that brings healing, right? And put you in alignment with Most High, with your angels, so you can find out who you really truly are, right? They won't tell you that. They will tell you that you need to pray, you need to go to church, right? You need to bring your money, right? They'll tell you those things because it's a program. That's why man hijacked 45 scripture, 45 books, and that's at a minimum, right? I'm sure there's others that leak hasn't happened yet that they found. So anyway, so yes, on to the journey with. So I started dialysis, and I knew right away. The only time I did cry during that entire process, then it's 4.5-year process up to the transplant. The only time that I did cry about the process was when I was first laying on the table, when they were putting the first catheter in. And of course, it's freezing in those places, and it's like a meat locker, right? And it's a stainless steel, right? Because of germ prevention, it's a stainless steel, like 5 degree stainless steel slab, that you're laying on. So the nurse brings over some blankets and that, and she sees that there's tears running down the side of my face. I'm laying on my side, and she says, "It's okay, Mr. Kevin, or Mr. Thomas." She says, "It's okay. Just don't let it run you. Don't let it. You can still live your life. Don't let it run you, right?" And I remember that, and so I already knew that that it wasn't going to end this physical life. I already knew that. Okay, I already knew that. Okay, so with that, catheter. I'm out. Wake up, the catheter's there, extremely sore, right? I could not turn my neck. That took, I'm gonna say easily 2 weeks to completely be able to turn my neck 45 degrees left and right. It easily 2 weeks. Very sore, especially because it went over the collarbone, and there's already no meat there anyway. Your collarbone, that's like bone on skin. There is nothing there, right? And so, yeah, it took a minute for my skin to be able to stretch, to turn my neck either way. And so I started my treatments. I started out with Fresenius, and they do 3-day-a-week treatments. But then 2.5 years into my treatments, I found out about a new facility and process, and that facility is called Next Stage, which they've been brought out by Fresenius now, of course. It's like Walmart buying up mom and pop's fruit stand, of course. Right? And so yes, even though mom and dad's fruit stand had better customer service. So anyway, so they buy up. They have purchased the Next Stage facilities around the country. And if they haven't bought them all, purchased them all, and changed the name and all that, they're in the process of completing that. But anyway, they purchased this facility that I was going to in Central Florida eventually. But I found out that this facility was doing 5-day-a-week treatments, and in fact, one of the nurses or CNA techs that was at the Fresenius facility that I was going to at the time told me about the 5-day-a-week treatments, and she thought because I was still young, again, I was diagnosed with this when I was 38. Again, average age is 60 plus. And so in that regard, I was, I guess, in some way kind of an anomaly to the doctors as well. And I would get that later on, like the doctors would come in, if it was a nephrologist I was meeting, he would come in, or if it was a specialist, and he would say, wow, I was expecting someone like in their mid-60s with this. Nope, here I am, 39, 40, whatever. Right? And so, yeah. And so, once I found out what it was, I began to do my own research, and I can't stress this enough. Once I found out what it was, I started dialysis treatments. I did my own research and found out that there were, now I would ask my nephrologist about some of these treatments that I was reading about, right? And again, it's not a lot, but there's just a few that are known to combat this specific autoimmune virus, right? And turn around. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention the other reason: high levels of mercury. High levels of mercury in the blood, right, in your body, or it's a trigger. It's an autoimmune trigger. So, as an example, your body, right, it feels its autoimmune system getting low. You're about to come down with, let's say, pneumonia. Okay, you're about to come down with pneumonia. So, in an effort for your body, now I don't know what other parts of your body, right, enzymes and all. Again, this is not professional medical advice. Okay, I'm just sharing my experience and what I've read specifically about the kidneys. Okay, specifically, I joke and say I'm an unlicensed nephrologist. However, that is just a joke. Again, just a joke. So I don't know, where my enzyme levels are. Now, today I understand what the BUN levels are and what creatinine is and where the levels need to be for a healthy male and healthy female. And, today I know all of those things, but back then, what's a bun? Hamburger bun? What's BUN? What is that, right? Right? So there's a lot, obviously, that I learned over time. But when it came to cures, right, I was willing to take a look at anything, okay? Even though I knew that it was not going to run kidney failure was not going to end my life. I knew at some point I was going to get a transplant or be miraculously healed, whichever came first. It didn't matter to me how it happened. Okay, but they didn't want to try any of those things, or they thought I wasn't a good candidate for them, or what have you. But I still did my own research. So I did my own research, not just in regards to a cure, right? I also did my research in regards to successful experiments, and some of those trials were successful, right? And the things that I had asked the nephrologists about and that sort of thing, and then some of them showed promise, but then there was no further information, like scientific studies typically are, right? There's long periods of time where there isn't any additional information. You might read an abstract, but then it might be 2-3 years, 5 years before you see anything else come back up in regards to that. That's just how science works. So, or how a man chooses to release information, however it goes. So I was happy to go to this facility that was doing 5-day-a-week treatments, because 3 days a week, your kidneys function 24/7, right? So anything that functions 24/7 naturally, even if using a machine, the more frequent the treatments, obviously, the more better you're going to feel. Now, obviously, because of just the the impracticality of trying to lug around a dialysis machine. You can't be on dialysis 24/7. Okay, although they are coming up with an artificial kidney, and that looks like something very interesting. And I probably shouldn't say come up with. They probably already have it. It's just not widely publicized or something, or utilized yet. But anyway, yes. So I was definitely interested in whatever was going to help me feel better, because those of you who know, you have parents, you have siblings. The only person on either side of my family that I know who's ever been on dialysis was my mother's father. And to my understanding, he was only on it for a couple of years, and he was 77, I believe, when he passed. But he was a rebel. And not a rebel like, I don't know, I'm a rebel in some way, and hopefully you are, because you have to be a rebel in some sort of way in order to live a free life, right? And to love yourself regardless of what other people think. You have to be a rebel in some regard to even live that way, right? Or even want to live that way. You have to be a rebel, because most people don't want to live that way. So you're automatically a rebel, okay? And so, So anyway, I knew that 3-day-a-week treatments. Oh, he was 77, so he was a rebel, and he would, even though he shouldn't have been drinking alcoholic beverages when he was on dialysis and all of that, he would drink all the time, sodas and all of this sort of thing. And this is what I would see when I would go into the facilities, and I would wonder. First of all, I had never heard of dialysis before I started. I had no idea what it was, no clue. I remember my mother telling me that he never followed the rules. He never did what the nurses said. He never anything. He was just one of those patients, you know. And so, other than that, no one else on either side that I am aware of has ever been on dialysis. Family, from my natural family bloodline, we live very long lives so long as we don't wreck them. And sometimes, in many cases, even when they do live reckless lives, it's still 85, 90 years old. And that's both sides of my family. That's on my mother and my father's side. And so, so that's good. So yes. So when I switched treatment facilities, because with 3 days a week, what I found out, and I know this is what everyone else is finding out, or what everyone else knows too, with 3 days a week, that is exhausting. Okay, so I remember my treatments every 3 days a week, so it was every other day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would need, after a 6-hour treatment, 6.5-hour treatment, I would need like 8 hours to recover. Well, it probably wasn't that. Treatments probably weren't that long. My treatments they started out that long. Then they got cut down to 4.5 hours. Yeah, so 4.5 hours. So then when I went to 4.5 hours, it still took, 7-8 hours for me to recover. I go home and literally pass out. No energy, no anything. And that was with Monday, every other day treatments, right? And so one of the things that, again, one day, all the dreams, all your hopes, all your whatever, right? You don't have to share them, because many of the things and plans that I have, I don't share them with people, right? Especially as far as like what I'm doing in the moment, where I am in the moment, where I am that day. Like if I don't post something on the channel, I don't post anywhere else, right? I have a Facebook page, but I don't post on there. Certainly not where I'm located. I have a Instagram. Oh, the Instagram page is, by the way, I was hearing like I need to share that information or something too. So, and my email address is what I heard. So, yeah, again, I'm reluctant to do that stuff because I'm so, it's just how I am. So anyway, so yes, IG, is the Encourager 333. Right? So that's where I am on IG. And again, I don't post there very often. Maybe I should start more. But I'm not trying to do it just for branding. And again, that's why a lot of times I don't show my face and all that, because it's not that type of party here. And will I have to show my face eventually? Sure. And when that time comes, I'll embrace that. But yeah. So anyway, so I started treatments at this facility in Next Stage, doing 5 days a week. And then at that point, then I could do like consulting work, like taxes, like I've said in probably every video. I was tax accountant or some form of accountant, bookkeeper or something for the last 13 years. And so at least then, even though I had dialysis and it went to 5 days a week, I had the energy, because the treatments were more often, to actually function. So I don't know why this isn't, other than money, I don't know why there's not a facility in the United States that's doing 5 day a week treatments for dialysis patients, knowing that that's better for them. But that's just like America, to have more aisles that are full of artificial stuff than there are natural food aisles. Like that's just like America, right? It's just like it. So, yeah, and to feed you the bare minimum, making you think that you're actually getting something. Right? That's superior to anything else you can get anywhere else. Right? All of that is hogwash. And that's why I made the statement earlier about the whole minister and seminary and all that, and that was before my awakening. That was just who I already knew in part, that I had some wonderful purpose here, right? And it's wonderful to me. It doesn't have to be wonderful to anybody else. Anybody else could be like, that's crappy. I would never want to do that. Well, that's good. I would probably never want to do your job. That's fair enough, right? We're all called to our own unique and specific purpose, and filling whatever prophecy we're here to fulfill, or prophecies. And so I felt much better. So then I could do a little work, right? Because I had treatments in the morning. I also, for a long time, for a year and a half or so, because I was a single guy, for a year and a half or so, I did nocturnal treatments so that I could continue working during the day. I would do nocturnal treatments. But then it got to a point to where I couldn't do that, because the treatment started to, I think my body at and this is probably a year or so in, my body started to, whatever dialysis does, and it's not good long term. I was amazed at the people who had been on dialysis for 10, 15, 20 years when I would walk into those facilities. And I'm thinking, how have you been coming here for half my life? What? With your big bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Oh, never mind. That's why you're still coming here for 20 years. That's why. Because this is nothing more than another lunch break on your calendar every other day, right? They're just up in there drinking and eating whatever they want to do, and I'm looking at them like, I wonder why the miracle won't come. Maybe they're not praying for one. Maybe they don't want one. I don't know. Maybe that's how they're acting. Or maybe that's why they're acting like that. So yes. So I would read up on all of these things, how to better my kidneys. Even though I was on dialysis, even when I was on dialysis, I would drink cranberry juice. I didn't wait until I got a new kidney to start drinking cranberry juice. Cranberry juice, that's probably the first thing that I ever learned, right? Is cranberry juice or something. And I would buy as much as I could. Oh, and by the way, twice during the 4.5 years that I was on dialysis, I was homeless. Twice. Right? The first time was when I first started dialysis, Yep, when I first started dialysis. Yes, when I first started dialysis. And I had a couch for a minute, then that went away. And then I had a van. And it was an Astro van that someone blessed me with. And that sure was, right? Was it twice during the fortnight or once? I know it was one time. It was either one time before treatment started or 2 times before treatment started and 1 time during treatments, or I can't, one of those, right? So at some point I was homeless during treatment. And again, all of this is, to other people, it scares them. Like, oh my God. I tell somebody I was on dialysis, they're like, wow, you were like death's door. I never saw it like that. I never, ever saw it like that. And that, to me, is the beginning of healing. When you can change your perspective to see something not even as half full, but as if it is being filled, right? So as you picture it, right, being half full, also picture the pitcher pouring more in to your cup, right? And that is where the healing starts. That is where the healing starts. So I was there at this new Next Stage facility after leaving Fresenius and doing 5-day-a-week treatments. And again, I would look up all these sorts of things that would help my kidneys. So I found out that parsley helps your kidneys. So I buy parsley, dried, shredded parsley, right, with a grinder. Typically I buy the grinder one because it's just easier. And I grind that up and I put it in my water and I drink the water. Because I'm willing to do whatever it takes to give life. That's give life to myself and give life to somebody else, right? Many people, some people, you have the people who are concerned about the process, and that bothers them. And then you have people who are not concerned so much with the process, but they're focused on the end goal. And so the process in between matters, but it doesn't matter as much as the end goal, right? So you talk about fitness. Yeah, does it hurt to get up an hour extra early every morning or every other morning or the day that you want to go to the gym? Yeah, it's tough. Because why? Because you already go to sleep late and you already have a tough time getting sleep and right? Right? But exercise and sleep, they do many of the same things for us, right? Release endorphins, relaxes you, helps your heart rate, right? Right? So long as obviously you're not doing something insane like powerlifting or something crazy, right? But generally, exercise is good, right? It's gonna help you do some things too that sleep does as well. But your body does need this still rest, right? The stillness of it and rest. But yes, so once I started 5-day-a-week treatments, I felt a lot better. I was able to do some more work, take on some more business, and kind of spread myself out a little more. And then, so yes, I was on, so like the parsley, what else? Believe it or not, beet juice. So anything, and this is probably knowledge for most everyone who's listening to this right now. By the way, I have 17 subscribers. Thank you so much. Went from 14 to 17, I think, in one day. So I think that's the biggest jump yet. So thank you, subscribers. And those of you who are tuning in for the first time, thank you so much. Perhaps you're finding out why you clicked on the channel. Perhaps you are like, what in the world is this guy talking about and why am I listening in? But anyway, so yes, so beet juice, right? I would drink, and I never drink. I thought beets were the most disgusting. And you talk about kids and broccoli. I don't know how I felt about broccoli when I was a kid, but I do know that even as an adult, I did not like beets. I did know that. It's like liver, like yuck. They're like, oh no, you haven't had it with onions. It doesn't matter. It could be under a banana split. I don't know. I'm not eating that. You know? Yes. So when I would look up these things and find all these things out, right, it helped me better prepare for the day that the call will come, because this is what I know. Now, have I ever sat in on a National Transplant Board meeting or anything like that? Absolutely not. The closest I think I've ever come is I was in communication at one point with Fresenius's like vice president of patient experience or something, and her name is Angela McClure, and she's awesome. I mean, and all that, but things changed, obviously, as many things did, when the pandemic started. So she had either received the okay, or she had approved for me to travel, I want to say to Austria, to be a part, and this is a true story, I have the emails, to be a part of this panel that's interviewed by Fresenius or Global Renal or Kidney Professionals or something. I don't know. I'd have to go back and read the email because it was 4 years ago. Well, 5 years ago now. But yeah, so that didn't happen because it was at the end of 19, and then obviously the septic tank blew up, right, in 2020. So then when that happened, then there was like nothing, right? And I don't even think they've probably not even gotten back to even having those meetings, probably even yet today. And here we are in 2023 going into 2024. I don't know, right? But so that was an opportunity, that I was excited and intrigued, right, and eager to be a part of, and that sort of thing. But yeah. And who knows, maybe for another time. Who knows, maybe for another time. That obviously was not the time, because, yeah, who knows? Who knows why? That just wasn't the time. Yes. So with that, I have since, I've met, I don't know how many people that either were on dialysis or currently are on dialysis. My first employer after the kidney transplant, which I'll get back to that point. But my first employer after the kidney transplant, I was hired on to be an accounting manager for a direct mail marketing company, and they mail out the annoying cards that are far larger than they have to be with all the cars on them, and then there's a plastic key telling you it's the one to your new Porsche 911 and you're the lucky winner. Just bring this voucher in and then we'll give you a coupon for a free cup of coffee that's worth 50 cents, because that's what they do. Because marketing in a lot of cases is nothing but manipulation. To that point, anyone who's a company that is more than 100 years old that tells you their prices are lower than ever, period, point blank, they're lying. You might say that's black and white. Well, obviously they're not. But I'm just saying, for marketing and manipulation, narcissistic purposes, they are lying. Because there's no way Smucker's is going to put a jar of jelly on the shelf today for the price they put it on the shelf for in 1918. They're not going to do that. So the lowest price, even in 1980, lowest prices ever, they're lying. Again, simplistic, but again, marketing manipulation. It's no different than what they do in any other space, whether that's education and the manipulating of having people think that the only way to live is to go to school, get a formal education, and then get a job and a pension, and then pay your bills, own a house, take a couple vacations that you want, hopefully have a couple good holidays, die, leave a tombstone, and right. Your legacy is far more important than that. Okay. So anyway, so yes, so I would read up on all these things and find out what I could do to better myself. I was already taking very good care of myself. I think this is in large part where most people fail. And certainly you can change things around once you start treatment. Even if it was due to diabetes, okay, you can turn yourself around, and alchemize that, reverse that situation. You can do that. But the way you do it is not by continuing the things you've always done, but you're expecting a different result. Do I know it's hard to put whatever down? Yes, I do. Do I know it's hard to stop that? Probably. Yes, I do. Do I understand? Yes. Not because I've been addicted to it, or not because I've enjoyed it so much, or whatever else, but because it's probably something different than you. Okay. But I do know what it is to let go of something that you desperately enjoy, or you desperately like, or you think you can't live without, or I know what that is like. So we could talk about that. Right? So I would read up on all these things. I did not just take the doctor's word for it. Today, if a doctor comes up, I have a meeting, I just had my first one. I'm on the West Coast now. Just had my first one with the local VA, and just regular kidney follow-up, right, type of thing, annual thing. And she said, "Did I want some type of medication?" I think the nurse asked me, and I said, "No." I said, "I don't think so." She said, "Oh, okay. If they recommend it," I said, "Well, I mean, they could recommend it, but I'm going to look up the side effects." And she was like, "Oh, okay. Yeah, because, I'm not just taking something just because you're like, here, take this. I'm not doing that." Right? And so I wouldn't. Right? And again, today I'm still on 2, but those are anti-rejection medications that, again, science says you're to be on for the rest of your life after transplant. That is not my expectation, and neither is that my goal. So I encourage you to read about whatever it is, whatever's physically ailing you now, and I'm already running an hour, and now. So what I want to say, and bringing spiritual self and natural self together, what I want to say is this, okay? Every physical ailment is a result of a spiritual ailment. Every physical ailment is the result of a spiritual dis-ease. Everyone. Okay? So where does this come in for me? So for me, it comes in one of two places for me. That particular reason for me having to go through that season. One of two things. One, back then, I was a germophobic. I've mentioned this before. And I was almost severe or extreme. And I always related to Niles, the character, Fraser Crane's brother in the 90s, early 2000s television sitcom Frasier. Okay, it was so close to being just like that, so bad. I was already using rags for doorknobs, and I was already feeling like I had to wipe every car down before I got in. I was already there. It was really bad, and it started in the military. But what I believe is, right, one thought is, because it is an autoimmune virus, And it is triggered by your body defending itself from something with this, which is today the only other known cause other than high levels of mercury being in the body. And of course, I was tested for that, and I did not have high level. I had whatever normal levels of mercury are in your body. However, this is how powerful your thoughts are. So here's something to consider. With my thoughts, because of being a germophobic and the fear of germs, it created an auto response in my body. Does that make sense? Again, no nephrologist would ever diagnose me with that. But that's what divine is showing me. Okay? Again, that's why you have to know more than the professional that's advising you. Certainly you have to know more about yourself, and you have to be more aligned within yourself to be able to know something like that. Because most people take whatever the doctor recommends and they take them at their word for it, only to later find out that, there's been a recall on blah, 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 because it causes blah, 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 blah. When all they really needed to do was take some lemon and turmeric and probably drink it once a morning with some tea, and that probably would have taken care of whatever issue they had, and naturally. Just saying. Right? I'm not a whistleblower for the pharmaceutical industry, but I'm just saying that industry is just like the politics, at least in America, and that is that it's a joke and it's a scam. And sham. So, yes. So I encourage you, do your research for whatever it is that's ailing you, and take a look at the spiritual side of things. Okay? The only other thing that I could see, and I only say this just from my own point of view, this is obviously not true for everyone, because everyone's parents don't do witchcraft against them, but my father, my sperm donor, has been doing witchcraft against me since I was a child, right? Knowing who I was meant to be. So the only other thing I could see is that it is due to that. However, in me, I know that I had at least a part in manifesting that illness, right? And so what ended up happening in this part, if you've listened to any other of the posts, thank you, first of all, again. But if you haven't, then, or if you have, you know this part, because this is the part that I shared most, is that I started, I was driving an hour. By the way, it's not a good idea. The woman I was married to didn't care. Again, karmic relationship. The woman I was driving, the woman that I was married to at the time, we were relocating, and she did not want the guest room to be used as a dialysis center anymore, because I was doing home treatments. I was actually putting myself on the machine and taking myself off the machine with the catheter in my chest, because I refused to get the fistula, because my friend Marcia had gone through this process of a fistula and had an extremely bad experience. She was classically trained to play the piano at the age of 6, and she had in fact taught many of the people at the house or church that we both were a part of at that time, and that I was a part of for 20 years, and she was there just shy of 20 years before she ascended physically, right before she left her physical body, and so in 2020, and so yeah. So where was I going with that? I don't know where I was going with that. So yes, so know that whatever it is that you're going through, if it's a physical ailment, there's a spiritual reason. I'm going to go ahead and stop it here, because I know I'm going to come back and make a part 2. The part 2 is, in fact, dealing, what do we physically experience when we're going through the dark night of the soul and the spiritual awakening. So thank you so much for listening. I already know I'm going to come right back and probably go right into that. So thank you so much for tuning in. You've been tuned into The Encourager. My name's Nehru, and as always, be encouraged.